Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest Tribe Talks. I'd like to introduce my two guests, and I'm really excited about getting them together. We've been wanting to do this for quite a while. Up on the top left of my screen is Jenny. Jenny, can you just introduce yourself and tell us what your Instagram account is called and how long you've been out there in the Instagram world?
Okay, yeah. I'm Jenny, and my Instagram account is Mommy in the Herd. I went back and forth about my Instagram page, but I finally made it public a year and a half ago. Yeah. And it was kind of another friend had said to me to maybe make it public to try and, well, no, she had said, if you could just help one other family who was like you, wouldn't that be amazing? And I had said yes. So that's why I decided to do it, because so it kind of started off with Josh and his journey and how we all not coped, but how we all like dealt with different things that were coming at us with his diagnosis of autism. And then it just kind of rolled into all other different things, like with Emily Jane being stuck in the middle of these two bookends. And yeah, and then my own diagnosis. But yeah, it had started off with just kind of Josh's journey and how we were all dealing with it. Because when he got diagnosed, or when he was kind of 2.5 and I had went and tried to get some help, it was so terribly lonely, and there was nowhere to really turn to. Like I couldn't find anything, and there was no social media, there was no like group that you could find that easily. So that's why I had kind of thought, okay, when my friend said like, imagine if you could help, because I would have loved somebody to just kind of reach out a little bit and just kind of say, you know, I see you, or not necessarily like, oh, it'll be okay in the end, but just like, I see you and this is really hard. Yeah.
And as well on your page, I love the feminism, and I love the crafting and your interiors. Oh my God, like I send you messages like every time I see someone, I'm like, what's that behind you there, Jen?
I know.
What's going on behind you there, please?
I know. Yeah.
So it's a lot more than just autism.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. Now with COVID, I don't know, things are just like a little bit weird in my head, I think, but usually I completely lose myself. Like, to do a room up is my favorite thing ever, because I just completely lose myself in that. And yeah, I don't know, I'm just lost in this kind of sea of what I'm doing. And Ray has absolutely zero idea what's happening, can't understand what I'm trying to tell him. And so if I have to ask him to do something, I have to come with multiple pictures to be like, do you understand now? Because I can see it here, so I'm not understanding how you can see it.
Hi, I'm Laura Crowley, and my page is called Social Connect Series. It was originally Social Connect Model, but I kept getting weird messages asking me, was I taking on any models? And it just got weird, so I changed it. So on my page, it kind of started out as just me sharing social skills, kind of bits and pieces, because that's like my ultimate interest, really. But then it became, I suppose, more self-care and sensory play, because I do lots of that with the girls, and I suppose my own autism as well then, because I was diagnosed in the middle of it, and it's going actually exactly almost 2 years. So I've loved every minute.
What have you loved about it?
Lots of different things, but I do feel that the community on Instagram, like there is a community of women on Instagram who just are there for each other. And I don't think you always find that in reality, that support and that's probably the biggest thing I found, that I find it magical, really, like that there were these other women who wanted to see you do really well and were there to support you and share your stuff. And because I've always, I suppose from the very beginning, I came from a place where I shared, if I saw something and I thought it was of value, or I thought it was clever, or I thought it was inspiring, or, you know, whatever, I would share it and I would tag the account, and that always was super important to me. But I don't think in real life I had found that reciprocation of that, like, support. Obviously I have amazing friends who do that, but generally these are strangers that are just reaching out and sharing their stuff. So that's probably one of the biggest things I find is just really great about Instagram.
And you said something really interesting, Jenny, and again, I think that's why I like Instagram so much, how lonely it was pre-Instagram with Josh's journey. And I know myself, when I went through the whole IVF thing, there was nothing out there. They were just these pages on the internet that were kind of dark, actually. I found them very, I used to find it very depressing going in there. I didn't really understand what people were talking about either. There was lots of, I don't know, words that I just didn't get. And there's nobody to ask what that is. And I think that is huge for me on Instagram, that people are so easy to get in touch with people. And like you're saying there, Laura, it's so easy to reach out to somebody. And I wish I'd had that back in my day. So, you know, Jenny, you were saying about your friends that if you help just one family, I'm sure both of you get so many messages. What kind of things do people reach out to you for?
I suppose lots and lots of different things, depending. A lot of it is kind of inspired by whatever I'm covering at the time, because I'll kind of do different topics. Like I did the 12 Days of Kindness back last December, and I got loads of messages about that, about, you know, just how to teach kids to be kind and what to do and that. And then I was doing a self-care series in January, and then again, loads of messages, people asking me, can they get a printout of the activities, and just loads of input around that, kind of the difference those small little things can make. And then if I'm doing something on social skills, I'll always get a question about that. But the more general ones would always be about my diagnosis, about getting a child diagnosed, about kind of difficulties navigating the system, because I've 21 years experience in the system, and I'm kind of in maybe a more unique situation than most navigating the system for myself, because I know it. So
yeah. And Jenny, what kind of messages do you get?
I get a lot, and I get a lot of different ones. So like it could be completely random, like if I put a picture up of Emily Jane's hair, I could get so many messages about her hair and how I did that. Or I find a lot of the time when like I'm talking, I get a lot of messages all from women, mostly mothers of young enough as in they're all under maybe 16, their kids, and like they're in that hole of like just darkness and they can't see out and they're so struggling. And I think that's the hardest, I'm going to say that's the hardest thing, but I don't mean like, I'm so utterly grateful and just, I don't know what the word is, but that they would trust me enough to be able to reach out to me. Like I can't even express like how kind of, I don't even know what the word is, but like grateful I am that they would put that trust in me to like tell me that they're having a bad day or that something happened. But at the same time, I'm so heartbroken, and like I'd never discuss it with anybody. I wouldn't even discuss it with Ray, but he can tell if I've gotten like a few messages that have been like maybe kind of sad or hard, and they nearly hurt me more to hear that people are this they're just struggling so much. That nearly hurts me more than our own journey of our own struggles, because I don't know, for whatever reason, that gets to me more, to think that somebody else has been hurt. Yeah, so I'd get like a lot of that, and the same as Laura, like I'd get messages about like, how did you find getting like Josh diagnosed, and like, how did I know to even go forward with an assessment for myself, and just things like that. Yeah. And then if I put something up to do with the house, I'll get that, or yeah. So I get a lot of different things.
How do you manage? Because you said something again really interesting there about how you feel for the people who've been in touch with you. How do you manage your empathy levels that it doesn't actually bring you down too much? Do you manage them yet? Are you learning how to manage that?
I don't know. I probably am learning. Like, I'm Ray now. Like, people say to me, "Oh my gosh, like you and Ray, like you work so well together, and you know, like it's so amazing." And I'm always like, yeah, but Ray and I didn't start off like that. Like, we started off two very different people, and now through all of our different life experiences and working, like, I can't tell you how hard the two of us have worked on ourselves, like through therapy and everything. And this is where we are now. So I do, like, Ray would definitely see it. Look, I've been known to be, like, Ray would be downstairs watching telly late at night, and I will have dozed off up here. And he's been known to find me at the top of the stairs crying because I had a dream about something that just really upset me, or I read on the news about another like wildfire or something. Like, I get upset over these things, and I don't know. I think I used to not that I didn't get upset, but I used to not cry. For a very long time, I didn't cry. And I was so conscious that like I'd cry really easily when I was younger. And then I can't even remember how, but for some reason I stopped. And then it took years for me to like learn that it was okay again. And as I said to Ray, I'd prefer to be super upset that this is happening than for me to not be, because this is really upsetting. And like, someone should care. So if I'm that person who's going to care, then I'm that person who's going to care. So yeah.
And Laura, how about you? How do you manage the empathy levels?
I suppose because like I've been working in autism services for 21 years, I spend my days listening to families and individuals, and I think early on I had to learn very quickly to not bring it home, because there was one particular situation where I visited a family, and the mum basically told me that she had tried to commit suicide, and I came away from her in a horrendous condition because I could do absolutely nothing to help her. So I kind of had to learn there that to forgive myself for not being able to do more, because that was the biggest thing I would take away from it, that I would beat myself up because I couldn't help. I don't have that skill set. And to do what I could. And that was how I learned. But I became much better at not bringing it home, and unfortunately compartmentalizing it, because when you work in the field, I think you have to do a degree.
Yeah.
But I still bring the joys home. Like all of the wins, all of the joys, I bring them all home. I let them in. And I live on them, is the truth. So yeah, I think it was a process for me, a long process.
Has it sunk in yet that you guys are making such a big difference?
I don't think I am, you see.
You are like,
Well, no, because everything is relative, you know, like I like to think, you know, you make a small difference to somebody and maybe that can lead to bigger things.
Yeah.
But I honestly think that the support I get on Instagram, the messages I get, you know, all of that, that's worth more to me than anything. Like just that connection from people. So yeah, I love what I do. I absolutely love what I do. And I think like even building relationships with Jenny and other others in the autism community, like there are so many so many amazing accounts. But I think there's so many making a difference that I don't really consider it anymore. I think sometimes when you get a nice message, you know, saying, oh, like my child has just started using your anxiety program and they're now starting to realize that it's anxiety, it's not them, and they're really happy and the whole family is happier as a result. That was one message I got, and that made my week. Like, because I could just picture me as a child, so every one of those messages I get, I'm picturing me, and had I had that, the difference it would have made to me. So for me, that's the ultimate, that like I can live on that, those messages.
I sent you a message like that. I remember saying to you, God, I wish I had that when I was a child, because I know that would have made a huge difference to me, and even to my the adult life I had, you know. I think what you're doing is amazing, you know. So
I agree.
I'm glad you see it sometimes, you know. I'm glad you can feel it when you get the messages.
Yeah, the messages probably are the big one where I go, oh my God, it is working for people, you know. I suppose I do certain things because they're in my head. Like Jenny will tell you that when you get stuck in something in your head and you can't let it go, and you're literally at 2 o'clock in the morning going, like, and you're writing things down, you're making notes on your phone, and my husband is like, go to sleep. And I'm like,
no.
Like for some things it's almost like a purge.
Yeah.
Like it has to come out.
Yeah.
And then other things are just complete labors of love. They're just like, you really care and you just need to do this. And the anxiety program was that. That was a complete labor of love.
Amazing. And actually that's what I love about Instagram as well, is that place to put stuff. Same as you both. I would be very like, I have to get it out, it's in me. I have to write, I have to explain, I have to show, teach. And you know, on your personal Facebook, people are like rolling their eyes as they see quote from Steph. It's like, all right, can we see having a place where people actually want to see it, you know? And Jenny, tell me, how do you feel? Do you feel like you're making a difference? How does that make you feel?
Like, no, when I sat like in this beside Laura and you, I'm like, oh my God, like the two of you are doing insane amounts of work. But like, what Laura has done is huge. Like, it's so huge. And it's really helped like that, like getting kids to understand a part of who they are. Like, that's just a gift to give to somebody. And imagine receiving that gift at such a young age. That's life-changing. So it's not even a small thing, because I know you said like it was like a small thing that might grow into a bigger thing. It's a huge thing, because if they can figure this out, I just think that so much more will come to them. Like it's so huge. And even the journals that you have as well, I love them as well, like you know, writing down something that was hard for them to do so that they can go back even and look at it. But even more than that, like it's teaching children how to go into the world of journaling so that they understand. Because sometimes I think if you hand even an adult, if you just hand them like a journal and say, oh, just start journaling, like there needs to be a little bit of guidance with it. You can't just give someone a blank piece of paper. Like they need sometimes a little bit of guidance, and you've started that as well. So like the next generation are sorted.
No,
Like
I agree.
they're going to be able to journal and know their anxiety. It's huge.
But think about like Jenny does these amazing lunchbox notes every day.
I know, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like I live for those lunchbox notes because they're always amazing quotes. Like they really, really are. And I don't think you see the difference that those kind of things make, because I guarantee you, how many messages do you get about those lunchbox quotes?
I don't know.
You get lots. See, you're being, yeah. But like they're so, just to show kids that daily little message in their lunchbox to let them know that they've got this, that they can do hard things, that, you know, that, yeah, life is not perfect. It's not supposed to be. If you're doing it right, it's not supposed to be.
That's a good way to put it. Yes.
You know, like,
yes.
and you're giving your kids all that information at such a young age, Jenny, that like I wish I had gotten, like I always think we parent our kids, like we reparent ourselves when we
for sure
parent our kids. No, not that my parents wouldn't have done that, but if they had known, but you know better, you do better.
Yeah,
exactly.
But those little things can show people that you're just subliminally putting those messages in every single day. And it makes a difference. Like your kids are testament to it. Mm-hmm. Emily Jane is a powerhouse. Like she's just amazing. We had the pleasure of meeting each other in reality. The whole family's met up there 2 weeks ago, and it was so nice. And I drove to Wicklow to meet Jenny there about, I don't know, 2 months ago, a month ago. Just as the restrictions lifted.
Just as they lifted. Yeah.
Went up, had tea, had lunch, and came home to Cork. So a miserable day, but yeah, like Emily Jane is a powerhouse, and Josh is just so, like, he's so confident in like social situations. Sophia's just, as you say herself, knowing, like she's just amazing. And it's I think you completely underestimate the value of your presence. But I think that's you in a nutshell.
I think of like every mom that reaches out to you, Jenny, who isn't sure of themselves and is worried about a diagnosis. Like, I agree with something you said earlier on, Laura, that making a difference isn't about huge things. It's about like constant giving back, constant listening. Like you said yourself earlier, Jenny, as well. I hear you and I see you. That is huge for so many people. So yeah, I think the jury's out. I think, you know, Laura and I completely agree, Jenny. You're making a big difference.
Okay, thank you.
Take it.
There's something she would send me, like she could send me a snap on WhatsApp or something. It's something she's doing, and I'm like, Jenny, do it. Like, put it up. And she's like, no, it's not good enough to put up on Instagram. And I'm like, no, it is. It's like really cool. Like, put it up on Instagram. She's like, no.
I'd say like 3/4 of the stuff never gets shown. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Tell me now, because a couple of things you've touched on. I'd love to go into the myths about being an autistic person, because you know, we're joking earlier about empathy, and you know, there's that myth that autistic people who have autism have no empathy, and Jenny, you've got like more than most of us, you know.
Yeah.
So tell me about the myths or the things you thought about what autism meant, and maybe Laura's going to be different for you because obviously you've been in the field for so long, so the myths were busted many years ago, but maybe what you think other people think about people who have autism, and that you're like, no, there is no box, like, so.
Yeah, I think like Laura would know so much more about it. Like mine was so I had Josh when I was 20, and by the time he came to like 2.5, I knew something was happening, but I didn't know what was happening, because I knew the word autism, but I'm not sure that I even knew what it meant. And I don't even think I knew that it was kind of just the typical kind of Rain Man thing that people are always wanting to reference. It just hadn't entered my head. So yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm a complete fraud and I'm like telling people things. I'm like, I really don't know. Like, you'd have to talk to someone amazing like Laura. But I keep these two balls. They're made from loom bands that Josh made when he was maybe 4. And he was able to tell you how many loom bands were in each ball, and they all had to be a specific color, and like, it was insane. But when he handed me that, I was watching a program called Parenthood, and in it, the little boy in it also made a ball made out of, I think it was maybe elastic bands, and I literally could not breathe. And I hit Ray. I was like, oh my gosh. And yeah, so that's how I figured out what it was, because even like today, it's amazing how much, I think everything has changed, like everything, because of accessibility to things. And back then, like, I didn't have, like, I was at home all day. I didn't have access to the internet on my phone. Like, I didn't have that. So I couldn't just do a quick search to try and see, or, you know, any of that kind of thing. So Laura's probably the better one, because like, just because you got a loom band ball and because it was in a show does not mean anything. But yeah.
Some of the, I suppose, like, I started working in autism back in officially in 2000. And back then it was, I'd be asked questions, you know, you go out on a Saturday night or whatever, and you'd tell someone, oh, I work with kids with autism, and they'd say, oh, is that where they rock back and forth, or is that where they, you know, I used to get quite defensive. And I realized now people had no education, but in my head I was thinking of my students and they were all amazing, and I was like, no, it's not, it's, you know, but now I think even when I'm giving presentations and stuff, and like the official medical definition of autism is it's a neurobiological disorder, but I will normally give the medical definition and give the neurodiverse definition, being that it's a different operating system. You know, we're working on Apple, and others are working on Android, or vice versa, you know, and it's different programs. So I think some of the things that people think are that people on the spectrum lack empathy, when in truth they overfeel. Like, just as Jenny was saying, they have too much empathy. I used to have a student who had to finish every scrap of food on her plate because she felt so sorry if anything was left behind. She couldn't leave the rice behind because she was like, the poor rice, it died to feed me and I can't leave it on my plate. So she would literally almost stuff herself because she couldn't leave anything behind. So it's that over empathy. I think people think that autistic people can't lie is another one. And in my experience, I have met autistic people who can lie, maybe not very good liars.
I was going to say.
We're not very good liars.
I don't think
like,
so.
My friends would always say, like, my face does not lie. The light could come out of my mouth like, oh, this is lovely, but my face tells a very different story, and I can't make it do like that, like unless I like really physically try, and even then it comes out a bit forced. So I'm trying to think of any other ones. That they can't fall in love is another big one, because they're so introverted. But I get that one. They don't like friends, so they don't fall in love, obviously, and it's a complete myth. And I think as well that probably the biggest one for me right now is the whole low functioning, high functioning thing
Oh
that
my
people
gosh, yeah.
refer to, like, oh, but you know, you're high functioning, so it's fine. And aren't we all a little bit autistic? And all that
No.
really does is minimize my difficulties
Mhm.
and minimize the abilities of somebody who is described as low functioning.
Mhm.
So there's lots of different things around language, I think, that we need to explore and, you know, kind of drive home a bit more. But like when I was diagnosed, I did get, but you have friends, you make eye contact.
Another one, isn't
You're
it? Eye
married,
contact.
you're married.
Yeah.
You're married. You have kids. You went to college.
Yeah.
You have a job. You're holding down a job. You can't be autistic. You know, like, not to like my face or anything, but in kind of inferred almost. Like, how did you possibly get this far? Like, you're married with kids and you have a job. Like, how did you get this far without a diagnosis? In other words, like, are you sure? Do they, like, are you positive? You couldn't possibly be. But and that goes back to difference between girls and boys, and it's a whole other conversation. Like we were saying, Jenny and I, when we first met, virtually met, we started chatting, and I think it was around the time we were both doing a campaign for Lenore out in the Sticks of Six. I think that's when we started chatting, and I got Jenny's autism almost straight away. She'd never mentioned that she was autistic or that she thought she was. So I was being really super cautious. And then one day we were chatting on WhatsApp, I think. No, it might have been at WhatsApp. And I said, did you ever think that maybe you're on the spectrum? And Jenny, she was like, I have an assessment tomorrow. I was like, oh, wow, timing. And I suppose that was around the time I was really giving my own identity consideration, and I could see it in Jenny. So I wondered, did she see it? And you're just looking for that connection, really, of somebody else who's in that same boat at the time. But I don't think I mentioned it to you for months then after that.
About if you were going to go for your assessment. I don't know. I feel like it wasn't months. Like it was, I think I got mine, was it summertime maybe? I can't remember. But I actually just wanted to ask, because it was so funny listening. Sorry, Steph. I'm going to ask her the question. I wonder, did you see it in me because you were starting to question, or more so look inside yourself? So now you were kind of almost looking outwards as well.
Yeah, it's like when you're going to buy a red car and all you see is red cars. Yeah. That kind of neuroprogramming almost to maybe be hyper vigilant about it, because that's entirely likely too. I just remember thinking, like, I was like, oh God, Jenny, like, I wonder, could I talk to her about it, kind of thing, you know? So it was just funny that you said, oh, my appointment is tomorrow.
Yeah.
And what was it that you recognized in Jenny, do you think?
Oh, a good question.
Jenny is just so genuine. And that's like, that might maybe sounds like a play on words. She's genuine, but she's like super, super genuine, altruistic, and just so caring. But also I can see the depth of her interest and the depth of her focus when it comes to her passions and her interests. And I think that's what I identified most with, because I could see you like hyper focusing on certain things. And like, I suppose only my husband would really know the extent to which I hyper focus on things. Like, it could be on coffee tables, and I can spend a week of 2-3 hours an evening looking at coffee tables until I get like, find one. And then I'll take a screen grab of that, and then I'll be like, and now I need a lamp that matches that, and that's another 2 weeks. but I just totally hyper focus, and I could see that in Jenny as well. And I think that was it. And I could see as well, you're just over empathizing, and you're very much yourself,
Mm-hmm.
but with that, it's almost the apologies you make for being yourself sometimes. And I was like, oh my God, she is just the most genuine, nicest person.
Of course.
So that's kind of what drew me in. But I think the hyper focus is what made me think, yeah. And I knew you were dyslexic as well, Jenny. You had mentioned that before. And that's often a comorbid. And because Josh is diagnosed as well, there's that genetic connection as well. But yeah, so I think it was the hyper focus that really kind of got me. I was like, oh, she's crafty, she's artistic.
You a couple of things there as well that I want to ask you about. So the educating piece. So both of you are educating all the time, like you're breathing. You're educating people, and in such a charming way. And that's another thing I've said this many times in my tribe talks that I love about Instagram is I'm learning things that I don't know how I'd learn them. Like, again, like you said about the language to use, like we're brought up with certain, like you said, the Rain Man thing. Like I would have said that before I got to know you guys. I would have said it a bit like Rain Man because I don't know any better. And I love that about Instagram, that I get kind of gently educated. Also, it's entertaining, so I don't even realize I'm getting educated. But I love that, right? I love that. And I think lots of people on Instagram love that. How do you feel about being educators in this arena?
Go, Jenny.
Oh my gosh, that's like really difficult.
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure. I think before I had said, I guess that's like the over empathy maybe as well. I was really upset over a case in America, and I was just, it was all consuming. And Ray knows that when this happens, that's it. I'm gone. I am down that hole, and just that's it. Forget it. And I think I had said, because to me, I'm like, why would you follow people on Instagram who are exactly like you? Why would you follow people who look like you, who just are exactly like you? Because you're never going to learn or evolve. And I'm like, well, isn't that like our purpose, to evolve and to know more and to grow from all of that? And I remember saying on Instagram that maybe I'm people's kind of tick box for a bit of diversity. And I was like, oh God, I don't know how people are gonna take that. I was really nervous that day. I was so nervous. I walked the kids up to school with Ray, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I said all this. Oh my God. And Ray's like, so what? But I was so nervous. And yet, but when I said it, I was almost thinking to myself, oh, maybe I'm the tick box for other people. Maybe I'm their like little diversity pocket on Instagram. And I don't know what that feels like, because again, and I've said this since the kids were tiny, I'm just a mammy. Like, that's all I am. I'm just a mammy. I'm just over here trying to make sure that these three little souls go on to be the absolute best that they can be.
But I think, like, you're really playing yourself down there, because I don't think there is a woman in this world who is just a mammy.
Yeah.
You are so much more than just a mammy.
Yeah.
Seriously. Okay. Have you seen her gingerbread houses?
Good gosh.
They're art, they're amazing.
They're not art.
Who is this? It was the name.
Pardon?
Who's this? You said, oh, your gingerbread houses.
My gingerbread houses that I made.
I have seen your gingerbread houses. And the post box that you made that time?
Oh my gosh, the post box, that was for my friend, and that was so thrown together. And I was like, what even is this, Jen? What are you giving in to little 5-year-olds? I was so cross with myself.
And I'm sorry, but I've said this before, but your Halloween costumes, like just a mammy. I feel like the stuff that I end up putting, so I go down to, I throw money at problems just because like I don't have the skills.
No, but like you were so busy with work as well. And I always feel like when Emily Jane's hair is so different to mine, like my hair is just poker straight and so is Sophia's. So I didn't know what to do with her hair, and especially when she was younger. So I taught myself how to do all these different like plaits and hairstyles just to try and make it easier for her. And I wanted her to love her hair. I never wanted her to hate it. And people used to be like, oh my gosh, did you train as a hairdresser? And that's when I started no, I'm just a mammy. And this is what I've done. And Emily Jane, like even when we went to Disney World, and like sometimes I swear I can't even talk about like her, like the other two even, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna cry. But she was in Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, and they were like making her into a princess or whatever. And the fairy godmother in training came up to me and said, your daughter has not stopped talking about you and how good you are with her hair and how you just go around saying you're just a mammy when she thinks you're like this amazing hairdresser who does all these things. So then I was like falling in the middle of the world. But that's where my like just a mammy came from, because like people be like, oh, will you do my hair? Like you're so good. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not so good. Like I'm literally just a mammy over here. Like I'm not anything magical. I'm literally just a mammy trying to figure out how to like help her or help Josh or whatever. So yeah, that's where that came
What
from.
do you think your Instagram would look like if you didn't second guess yourself and you put up the stuff that just flowing out of you?
Love that question.
Let it flow.
I don't know. I don't know.
It would be amazing.
Sure,
if
Laura.
you put half the stuff that you send me and you don't post, like I always
Like,
think you're
do you
bad.
mean like things that I say, or like different things that I make or that I write? Or
All of
All
the
of
above.
the above.
All of the
All
above.
of the above.
Oh, okay.
Like you should put more of you. Your feed is always very much beautifully curated of your gorgeous children. But I think there should be more of you, because I think you have lots of wisdom and talent to share. I think there should be a lot more of that.
Like
I know, but I feel like such a fraud. Like, even like if I'm saying something to do with like we can do hard things, and obviously that's huge. And it was like I said that on my stories last night, that it was such a like call for women. But I feel like by me saying that, I'm like piggybacking off of all the hard work that Glennon has done. Oh my gosh, not that I'm in any way the same category as Glennon Doyle, but like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm not sure. I feel like a fraud. Like I will write things and I'll read them to Ray, and then I look over at him and he's like got like red fluffy eyes. And he's like, oh, holy God, Jen. And I'm like, okay, I don't know. Like, is this good? Yeah. Oh,
Let me curate your feed. I'll be like, yeah, post it.
Because I remember saying to my coach, my business coach, when I wanted to start Steph B, I was kind of trying to describe it. And back then it was purely just a place, like a space. And I was like, I don't know if that's like a good idea or a bad idea. And he's like, who's your favorite management guru? My favorite one is Simon Sinek. I'm mad about him. And he said, how much of Simon Sinek stuff is absolutely individual to him? And how much of it is just all the stuff he's learned and researched, and it's interwoven and it's reproduced in his voice? And I was like, oh my God, yeah. Because like very few of the gurus I follow do their own, like Brené Brown does her own research, right?
Yeah.
A lot of them it's through what they've learned and discovered, and they weave it in their words and their way of producing it. And then it's funny because then I start writing things that are my words, but like none of it's original. It's just my words. But when he said that to me, it was one of those aha moments. I was like, yeah, okay, yeah. Sure, look, and if people want to listen, they want to listen. If they don't, they don't. But
And they do.
yeah, but it's funny. Like, you don't have to have something incredibly original. It's about, and that's what you already do. You educate in your words, and your words are gorgeous.
Mhm.
Look at what you posted the other night. I said to you, it's like a poem. Remember that?
Oh
Like,
my gosh. Yeah.
the
That was
kids,
Sophia's.
poem, like it's poetry.
Yeah.
So now we put Jen on the spot. We'll get the spotlight off you for a moment, Jennifer. So tell me about finding each other. So we talked a little bit about it, but I want the story now. How did you discover each other? And you said earlier it's only been about a year and a half you've been friends, which is crazy. But yeah, tell me how it started.
I think we were both doing the autism awareness, the April campaign with Lenore from out in the 66. And so daily, obviously, I was watching you and you were seeing me. And then I think we started like following, and then we'd start commenting or like back and forth on posts, and I think from there it kind of went quite quickly in that before I knew it, there was voice notes, long voice notes. We love a good long voice note. Like Jenny and I would start by apologizing for rambling, but 7 minutes later we're like, okay, that's it, and we've said nothing either, and we're both apologized to each other, but
also we want to get better at apologizing for our space because we deserve to have our space.
But I think it was just then in lockdown this year, I think, or last year, we like with lockdown we just really bonded because everybody was in these really tough situations. The phone was really your only lifeline to civilization outside of your 2 kilometers at the time. So I think we started chatting a lot more then. Yeah, I think that was really it. And then when I figured out that you were just going for your diagnosis, I think then we really bonded over that suspicion and that from my angle, and I suppose you digesting your diagnosis as well and stuff like that. So I think that's, for me, I think that's where it came from.
Yeah.
I don't know if Jenny feels the same, but
I feel the same.
How did you support each other then with the diagnosis? Because like you said earlier, it was very close in time that you both got your diagnosis.
I didn't tell anyone for months about mine because I was to suspect is to pontificate and to wonder and to, but to actually get that piece of paper is very confronting. And you literally, I spent probably 3 months reliving all my childhood years from a different lens. It was like somebody just changed the lens. So instead of seeing all these Laura-isms, was what I used to call them, now I could see my difficulties were differences. And when you change that lens, it's huge. But when you have somebody else who's going through exactly the same thing, adjusting their lens, even their daily lens, at the same time you are, that's magic. Like, then we talked a lot, and Amanda McGuinness as well from Puddins, she was going through the same thing. She was diagnosed slightly later than us, but she was going through the same thing and the wondering, and she had made the appointment twice and cancelled it twice. And so I think there is that support from the, you get me. Even though we don't have the same story, we don't have the same thing, but we do have, there's an awful lot of crossover. So that's magic for me.
No, it is magic.
How did you find
having
very sorry, I was just saying, how did you find it, Jenny, having Laura there as you were going through your stuff?
So I'm always super conscious because I'm always afraid in case I like say too much to Laura. Like I don't know, like I'm afraid in case I'm taking up too much of her time. Like, but yes, I desperately want to just tell her everything. I desperately want to just, I feel like I don't have to be so careful with my words, and not like so careful with my words that I want to say something like mean or nasty. It's just, it was even with like Josh, like I'm very protective over my little bubble and how I talk about them. And I just didn't feel like I had to be kind of as closed off as I had been for all those years with Laura. And then I was like, oh my gosh, Jen, like, shut up. Laura does not want to hear these things. Like, she doesn't care. So I was always so conscious, like I didn't want to be kind of going through literally minute by minute thoughts that I was having. But at the time when I got my diagnosis, very few people knew that I was going for it, that I thought that there was a possibility. And yeah, I just desperately wanted to tell her literally every fleeting thought that came across my mind. So yeah, so unfortunately she got every fleeting thought.
but that was really good for me, because you're saying something and I'm like, I totally resonate with what you're saying. And
Yeah.
so you may think that you're, you know, taking up space, but for me it's sharing space. It's not about you taking space at all. It's me having that safe space to share, and knowing that you feel safe enough that you can share is really, really important to me. So, and it's really funny when our husbands met, obviously they don't know, like neither of them are really on Instagram at all, like like, so my husband was like, this is weird. This is weird that we're all, you know, meeting up. And I was like, no, they're lovely people. I've met them. They're fabulous people. You're going to love them. When they met, they came, we well went.
The exact same, by the way. Just be like, you know them how?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So we went to Fola Gardens and we had a lovely time, and then you all came back here for a barbecue. And it was a moment where we were talking about, I think we were talking about my gallery wall. And Ray said, or was it Emily Jane said, I love your gallery wall. And I just laughed because Ian was like, I have no hand, act, or part in this. I was just told where to put things. And Ray made a comment. He said, oh, I love when Jen gets me to do things. She's like, I just need you to do it kind of like that. And he's like, what? You know, no, not like that, like that. And Ian's face, he just was like, bing. And he was like, yeah, he said, I love putting things up for Laura because she loves to ask me to take them down again and put them somewhere else like 5 minutes later. Or else I'm like, no, not like that. I said like that. And he's going, what's that? And I was like, it's obvious because myself and Jenny, I see it in my head, but he can't see it in his head, obviously. So I'm like, no, you're not doing what I've asked you to do. And he's like, you haven't used words. You're just doing a lot of this. So they were racing it. It was it was an aha moment for me. I was like, that's not a Lauraism either. That's another one of my little autistic traits, because Jenny has exactly the same thing. And then I could see it. Then I could totally go, oh wait, no, it's because we see it in our heads and we want it, or we see it in our heads. So that's comforting. That is comforting.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing, because you said earlier on about the Lauraisms. And you said about the lens, about how you were kind of almost processing your childhood again using a different lens. Did it did the diagnosis help you become friends with your inner child?
Yeah, like not my inner child, my inner teen,
Yeah.
my every part of me. I am the happiest I have ever been because I finally have made peace with me. I'm not I am just way more comfortable in my own space, and I'm no longer willing to put up with things that I put up with for years. So yeah, I think the diagnosis has made a huge amount of difference. I actually got an email during the week from somebody who was on a webinar that I gave, and she said, "Oh, you mentioned you were late diagnosis, and she said, I've always suspected, but I'm wondering, like, will it really make a difference? Will that piece of paper make a difference?" And I said to her, I was like, you can spend a lifetime wondering. You can spend a lifetime with that one thought in your head. Or you can spend, I know it's a lot of money, it's €400 roughly. But you can spend that €400 once and know. And forever know who you are and why you are. And that is worth more than gold to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know how Jenny feels it's affected her, but for me, it's been transformative.
Yeah. No, I think I think it's huge. I'm similar and different all at the same time. I understand now why I do things or why things were so difficult when I was a child. Like, I was never okay in restaurants ever, but like I'm a huge like pleaser, and I want to do things the right way, and I want to make sure that I'm following the rules. And that's like a huge thing with COVID for me. Still haven't been to like my local Dunnes and Aldi because I'm petrified to do things the wrong way. But so like now I know all that, but for me, it takes me a really long time to process things, like emotionally and mentally. I guess I have to wait for like the right time for when I'm ready to like go over things in great detail. Like I'll go over things that maybe I did this week or last month or last year, but I can't always go kind of too far back and delve too far into certain things. I probably will, but it's like Sophia's pregnancy and her birth was really, really difficult. And it kind of, as soon as I had her and we were okay, I just was like, okay, I have to like box that away because I can't cope or deal with that right now. And she just turned 8. And like we're only just like myself and Ray are only just kind of been able to process that. So sometimes I just take that little bit of time. I can be like a little bit of a slow burner when it comes to that. But it like I couldn't imagine not knowing. And I remember like when Josh, so when we started on like the start of assessments for Josh, we had a gorgeous educational psychologist who diagnosed his dyslexia first. And she thought it was very clear that there was a lot of other things in his little basket. And she said to me, and I say this now to everybody, if you have a question, you have to keep following it all the way to the end. But she also said you have to follow it with the right people. So don't ask the wrong person that question because they're not going to be able to answer it properly for you. And I think it's the same when you're an adult. Like, you just get such an insight into yourself. And I feel like social media and everywhere is so into like trying to find it, like, who are you? And there's like, it's a huge even money industry in the sense of like self-care and like finding out like who the real you is and being in touch with yourself. But this is just the same, if not bigger than that, because you're really finding out a massive part of who you are, and it's like everything just starts to make sense. It's like it hasn't made sense for the longest time. I can't tell you the conversations that I've had with Ray. I'm like, I don't understand, like, why did this happen? Or like, if I've been hurt by somebody, I'm like, I don't understand, like, what did I do? And he's like been through all that with me. And now it's not that it doesn't like make it easier. Like, it's not that it takes the pain away, but you understand just that little bit more. And I think that's just really important. Right?
I'm a big fan of understanding myself and understanding others. Definitely gives me emotional freedom. And that's something that I've discovered, particularly in my 40s, coaching journey, to learning about myself and like the Stephisms, you know, what are they? Where do they come from? Why am I wired like that? And there's a lot of things I've done to make me understand my wiring. And it did just make me become friends with myself. I just went, oh, okay, well, that's why. Okay, that's cool. Now I can have a strategy to help me deal with that. So yeah, you know, boxed off. So that's why I was wondering about your diagnosis, and did it make you more, you know, friends with yourself? And did it change your relationship with Josh, Jenny, that you have this in common now? Did that make any difference?
No. Ray, I know he doesn't mind me talking about this because he spoke about it before, actually, for the campaign thing that we were doing for Lenore. Josh, when he was 2, it was, I don't know, it's like we're in this bubble. And I say like a bubble way before COVID. Like, we had our bubble. And Ray would say that the two of us were just so connected that like he'd move and suddenly I'd move a certain way, and it was as if like we wouldn't even be looking at each other, we just knew. So I think we've just always been just, I can't explain it.
Two peas
and
in a pod.
yeah. And yet he has so many things that are similar to Ray, you know, like I think sometimes people think, oh, because he's on the spectrum, it's almost like I don't know, that he's not going to be like either one of us. I know that like he has his own things, but he still like carries different traits from the two of us. And some of the things are so right. But yeah, I think if anything, it probably made me understand Sophia more than it did Josh. Yeah, it was definitely Sophia that is, which is weird, but yeah, it was definitely her more so than Josh.
Is Sophia a little Jen?
So everybody says that I am my grandmother, that I am just her, that we are like practically the same person. Certain things I do with my hands, like Ray will look over and be like, oh, you could not get any more like her. And then everybody says that Sophia is so like me. But I don't know. I think that she's so different to me.
I think you're very like.
Do you? Yeah. And how we do things?
Yeah, even in your voice and the way you say things and stuff, she's very, very like you.
But do you think that that's her like copying me, or do you think that we're just?
No, I think she's just so like you. I really see a little you in her. Yeah, I do. I don't see it with Josh.
Yeah. Oh, you don't?
No.
No, you see, like this is why I'm like, Josh and Sophia are so different. Like, while they hate certain smells and will only eat certain things, it is not the same smells and it is not the same things that they will eat. Like, nothing is the same. She just, I don't know. I look at her and I find her even so hard to explain. She just is. That's how I explain her. You know, she just is. She just exists. And I think that in the past maybe 3 months or so, I could see like a part of her not changing, but like wanting to, she'd get very like Emily Jane would start to creep in her. And I knew this wasn't her, but like I could tell she was so uncomfortable. Like, her body, it just didn't sit right with her. And then in the past few months, she's just not had that. And I think that's really important to me, is that she just stays exactly who she's meant to be, that she's just let be. So yeah, I think that that's what that's done.
And in fairness, you know, both of you are creating amazing foundations for your children to be who they're meant to be. You know, the work you're doing on yourselves is going to have such an impact on your children, and you know how safe they feel to just be themselves and, you know,
So
do their thing.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Well, you're certainly trying your best, lads. I mean, you can't say much more. Tell me now, for other people in a similar situation who have perhaps concerns about their children, or, you know, questions and concerns about themselves, what would you advise them to do? Laura, I'll go to you first.
Like I always advise parents to try and seek a professional opinion. If you have that little inkling, you know, look for a professional opinion. As Jen said, ask the right people. You know, I think with girls, there is such a lack of knowledge, unfortunately, around autistic girls, that our girls are being missed constantly. Our girls are only being diagnosed when they're in the mental health system, because they have ended up with eating disorders or with you know, depression or severe anxiety or OCD or a myriad of other difficulties. So I think there needs to be huge work around girls. And I've had numerous people come to me and say that they asked their GP about their daughter, and the GP said, oh no, she's fine. Like, she makes eye contact, she's fine. And that dismissal of people's concerns makes people go away going, yeah, they're professional. They said she's fine, so let's go with that. But unfortunately, the difficulties don't go away. They don't go anywhere because they don't have an outlet to be helped. So I would say look for a professional in the autistic field rather than a general GP, even a speech and language therapist or an occupational therapist, or if you can, a psychologist. Even, you know, if you have friends who are teachers, they will see an awful lot of, you know, cross section of different students, and they may have some knowledge of where to go for advice, but do see someone in the relevant field. You know, I suppose from my own perspective, people often ask, you know, what difference would it have been to been diagnosed as a child? And that's like a $10 million question. I don't know, because I am who I am because I didn't know, I suppose, or in spite of not knowing. I'm probably a very different person in the last year with that knowledge. But I do think it would have made me a lot less self-critical. I would have not put myself in situations that I put myself in due to masking discomfort and masking my own emotions, my own anxiety. depression, you know, I think it would have really made a difference to my mental health. So I urge parents, you know, please pursue it. You know, no matter what age your child is, really please pursue it and get that answer, because for that child, it can make the difference between having, you know, a healthy understanding of yourself and suffering the consequences of mental health difficulties if nobody around you understands you. Yeah, so that to me is seek out somebody in the professional field, someone with experience and knowledge, and maybe educate yourself. Like when I was even considering my own diagnosis, I read Jennifer Cook's book, Autism in Heels. I actually got an audible around the time we went into the first lockdown. And Jennifer's a friend of mine, like, and she had said it to me. She visited Ireland. She's in the US. So she was diagnosed at 34 after her daughter was diagnosed at 8. And then her son was diagnosed at 5. And then when she had Gavin, her youngest, they were like, well, if he's not autistic, we're going to have to send him back because we're not going to know what to do with him. Her husband was diagnosed. So there was one big, the whole family was autistic. And Jennifer had visited Ireland a few times doing keynotes because she's an amazing author. But she came to my house when she was over here in Ireland. And I had just had my youngest, Ruby, small boss. And she saw that I was in trouble. She knew I had postnatal depression at that point. And I hadn't really confronted it at all at the time, but I was smiling and I was doing everything that a good host should do. You know, I was pouring the tea and I was doing tick, 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 everything I should do. And she said to me at that time, she said, did you ever read my book, the Autism Heals book? And I said, no, it's the one book I haven't read. And she said, well, I think you should read it. And I think you should do the checklist. The checklist is like a checklist for women on the spectrum. But my head was so full at that point, I could not even, I was just like, oh, okay, gone.
Yeah.
And then I came up kind of recovering from the postnatal depression, and then lockdown hit. And that's when I read the book. And that's when I was like, yeah, 100% I'm on the spectrum. So I FaceTimed her and I went, I think I might be. And she was like, oh, thank God, I've been waiting. I've been waiting a long time now, Laura, a long time. And I was like, oh, really? She was like, yeah, years. I've been waiting years.
Yeah.
So she saw it. So.
You know, you said about, you know, if you had got the diagnosis earlier, which, like you say, is a $10 million question, but there's all that stuff that not being diagnosed brought you, like you said, the self-criticism, you know, and you know, the reason I do these tribe talks is all around belonging and that difficulty of finding belonging. And it's so hard not belonging as a child. You carry that through, you know, to being an adult, don't you? You know.
Yeah, like I had what I now refer to as eras of friendship, and they would be quite intense and really focused, and then they would go and I would be really quite, sometimes I'd be confused, other times I'd be like, well, good riddance, and you know, they're not for what's for you, what won't buy you, and all that. But I did struggle really to have those lasting relationships. And I do feel like with Jenny and with Amanda as well from Little Puddings, you really don't need to explain why you do things at all. And there's real magic in that.
Yeah.
Like if I spend a week on an image, making an image, and I say that to them, I know they will not judge me. They will not be like, Laura is nuts. Like, Laura is crazy. My husband calls me his favorite weirdo, has always called me his favorite weirdo. And it's a real affectionate term. Like he actually likes me, I swear. But because he always thought the stuff I did, he used to be like, are you still looking at fence paint colors? And I'd be like, yes, I have it down to like 3 different grades. And he'd be like, oh. So I don't have to wonder, should I say those things to yourself and to Amanda, because I know you totally get it. Like with Amanda, it's books. Amanda loves books. Like books are her Christmas. Like when she's getting a
Yeah.
book to Poppy or an Amazon delivery, she's like, oh God, look at these books. This is
I
amazing.
helped Amanda,
So many
actually.
books.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, she did. That's her Christmas. Like Amanda, like
Yeah.
she'd buy herself books. She's like, I think I'll treat myself. And then she's like, I just bought 4 books on Book Depository, you know. With you, Jenny, it's all crafting and cooking. Oh my God. You seem like you need to share more of your cooking.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, stop.
Yeah.
None of it looks pretty. None of it looks pretty.
It's delicious.
Only pretty, really delicious. Yeah.
So I know I don't have to explain any of my special interests or my particular focus at the time. And as well, like we all have that same kind of thing. One of the autistic traits that I think we all share is that we go from train thought to like, that's hyper focus. I forget to eat. I don't want to sleep. I wake at 2 a.m. writing notes about things. I write voice notes to myself, you know, this kind of complete hyper focus on an end goal. And then that firefly thought where you're like, flit, 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 because nothing has captured your interest fully. So you're not focused on anything. And those are the times when you forget to pay your car insurance and you do all these things because you're not focused at all. And you're on those days, like you leave your car unlocked and you burn the dinner and because you're just not focusing at all. And I know I don't have to explain that to them either because they just get it. And that's, for me, that's worth everything because you can laugh about it.
Yeah. I love the way you described that. I just love that. I wrote so many things down. Jenny, I'll ask you this then to build on that. You know, again, some of those things that were stephisms when I was a kid, I was a little bit ashamed of, right? So again, finding your tribe, is there a sense of, I mean, maybe there was never shame, but I think shame is an interesting emotion. The Brené Brown nerd in me, I find it so interesting. And I see it everywhere. You know, once I started learning about it, it's like I see it everywhere and I see how it affects all of us. Does having a tribe help you with any feelings of shame that may have come with, you know, not being diagnosed when you were younger?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, we all love Brené Brown here. Yeah. So, yeah, I definitely think so. I think like that with Laura, like it's so strange to think that we've been friends only such a short time, but we've been through so many different life-changing experiences with our children and with ourselves. And even like in the past few months, I was going through huge things and it was crippling me. Like I was not able to function and I felt huge shame. But to have Laura there was just, it was so huge because she understood, I guess, both how I was feeling, but also how the other people were feeling who were affected by this as well. And yeah, it was huge because I hadn't really had it at that level before of being able to be so completely honest, like I had never been before, apart from probably a psychologist's office after I had sussed them out, you know, maybe after God knows how many visits trying to figure out if we were okay here. But yeah, like it's just like it's been huge. Yeah.
And I suppose final question to you both. If anybody's watching this and they don't feel belonging and they'd like to find some, do you have any hints or tips of what they could do?
For me, it's probably figure out what makes you happy, because that was the start of my journey of recovery from postnatal depression. I did that Maurice Seale's 52 weeks, 52 lists for happiness. And the first page was what makes you happy. And I should have anticipated, like the book was called 52 Lists for Happiness. But I literally went, oh, I couldn't really tell. Like I really couldn't. I was sitting here on this bed and I literally was like, I don't know what makes me happy. So it literally took me about half an hour. And I think once you find the little things that make you happy, then you have a better standpoint to look at everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you don't belong, you're not happy. So you work on yourself, and I think the rest kind of finds you, because you will find your way on that journey to finding your happiness, and you'll figure it out from there. For me, that was the journey I took, and I'm so glad I bought that book. It's still not finished. I dip in and out of it. I don't do it every week. But that for me is find your happiness first, and then your tribe will follow.
Great advice. Jenny,
Yeah.
what's your advice?
Yeah, I think like the saying, you have to, and it sounds so, I think if you don't have a tribe and you are very lonely, to hear the words like, oh, you have to like find happiness in yourself can sound really difficult. Because if you can't find your tribe, you for sure are not happy with yourself. Like there is a complete link to that all. And it can be just very difficult to get there, but there is ways to do it. And like it can just take time, you know, and you have to be really kind to yourself as well. When on that, and like the biggest thing that I'd say is to as well look at getting a really good therapist. I believe that everybody needs a therapist at least once in their life, if not umpteen times in their life, because your brain goes through so much. How can you expect it to not get like a doctor, I guess, for want of a better word, for it? And I just think it's so important. And when you start to do all that work on yourself, as cheesy as that sounds, that it really does work. Like I'll have people say to me, oh my gosh, I can see how much you've worked on yourself and you've done this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, yeah, but that's where I am now. That's not where I was. Like where I was completely different. And it also didn't happen overnight. I've sat in therapist's office. I've looked at them. I've looked at the clock ticking. I've looked at their shoes. I've studied their clothes. I've wondered what they're writing. And even after sessions have ended, it didn't magically get fixed, because it's not up to the person sitting across from you to fix you. They're just helping give you the tools. And then it's up to you to be able to try and figure out when to use each tool that they've given you. And it's really difficult. Like it's not easy. It's not something that just happens. And I wish, I guess, that people would like say that it's not that easy. You know, you're not just gonna, I think people might have this idea that if they walk into a therapist's office, it's going to be all fixed in like 1 or 2 sessions. And that's not how it goes. It takes so much time. And like even sometimes years later, like I remember sitting in a therapist's office, like maybe 6 years ago, and some of the stuff that happened then I'm starting to only use now. Like I'm starting to be like, oh, that's what they meant. That's okay, because now I have this in my tool bag and I know that I can take this out right now. And it's trying to find that. And I guess also trying to figure out what your boundaries are. And they're really important, and everybody needs to know what their boundaries are. And especially, again, as women, we're not always so good at knowing what our boundaries are, because we're so programmed to just make sure that everybody else is okay. So we just don't always know what they are, or we could have worked really hard to get our boundaries up And then maybe something has happened and we have gone back a few steps and suddenly we're like, well, hang on a minute, like there is literally no boundaries here. Everything is coming flooding at me. What am I meant to do? And in that as well, it's, don't lose, I guess, hope or faith that you can get those back again, because they were there once, and you don't, even though sometimes it feels like you end up back on square one, you don't end up back on square one, because you are not the same person that you were when you started off on square one. You have so much more there, and you've worked so hard, so you're not there.
I just have to tell you a funny story about therapy.
No.
So this will tell you now how literal. I never really realized how literal I was. But I went for therapy after a really bad breakup. And I remember sitting in the office of this woman, and she's really, really lovely. And at the end of the hour, she said to me, I'm going to see you next week. But between now and then, I want you to think, what does Laura love? What does Laura need? And what does Laura want? I went, okay. Left the office. It was a Thursday, rainy Thursday afternoon. Went home thinking, what does Laura need? What does Laura want? Saturday morning, I got up, I dressed up, and I went and spent 26,000 on a car. I went back to the appointment on Thursday, and she said, well, did you think about what I said? And I said, yeah, I bought a car. And it's only now that I can actually realize that is not what she meant. Like, she did not mean go buy something. Yeah. But to me, I was like, want, need, love, car. But she was talking very introspectively, and I was thinking more materialistically, obviously. But yeah, so that's...
She did it, like, and also, like, she said, I bought it by Saturday, it's bought, like.
Mm-hmm. And I blamed her. I was like, well, my therapist actually told me to figure out. So yeah, and I only had 2 sessions with her because I couldn't afford any more.
Oh, that's brilliant. I need to summarize though what you both said, because I think this is a great list. So belonging, it basically starts with you. Like, that's basically what we said. A therapist to work on you, be kind to yourself, figure out what makes you happy, and work on your boundaries. Like, that's within our control. So it's not about finding people, hunting, going through Instagram, like swipe right.
No.
I like the look of her. I think she might get me. Why doesn't she answer my DMs? No, but it all starts with ourselves.
Yeah.
Very insightful, I think.
Yeah.
Thanks, ladies. That was brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for watching. And I will put Laura and Jenny's Instagram handles underneath here somewhere. She'll find them. Thank you so much.